Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maxed Out with me, Lorena. As of this recording, we are down to 140 days until November 7th. We cannot wait to see Maxton Hall again. Prime Video, if you're listening, it's so exciting to think about what's ahead for season 2. Please consider a U.S. premiere because there's so much love for Maxton Hall here in the States. Speaking of a dedicated audience, it's shout out time, and this week it goes to the Damien Harding Asia fan page on Instagram that shows so much love for Damien. Also, did you see the poster designed by Elise for the Maxton Edit? You can view it on the Maxton Edit Instagram page. It's a photo of Ruby and James and they're holding hands, and it's so powerful and so moving and so beautiful. The caption on the post reads, "You cannot hold on to someone who is already letting go." I know we all loved it, and that's why we should petition to make it one of the official posters. Also, did you see the Gantt commercial that Damien posted this past week where he's talking about knowing the rules? It had been a hectic day for me, so when I saw it, it really made me laugh. And also, I enjoy reading the comments. So let's jump right into episode 5, which is called The Eye of the Storm. And for me, this is one of the saddest episodes. This episode picks up where Ruby and James finally kissed, only to be interrupted by Mortimer. The look on their faces, Ruby and James, they look so scared. The dad he drags James out of the building by his arm like he's some criminal. And at the same time, we see Lydia. She's getting out of the car. She's upset. She stares at Mr. Sutton. And I'm worried for the twins. I'm not feeling good about this. I don't know what Mortimer is capable of. In the meantime, the party's still going on and it's going well. And Ruby gets her recommendation letter from the headmaster. As soon as Lydia and James get home, Mortimer goes off on them. Beginning with Lydia, he basically insults her and says that everything that she touches ends up ruined. And this scene, it shifts back and forth between Ruby being happy at the party and then back at the mansion where things are not going well. So it's quite a contrast between the two scenes. And Mortimer starts saying awful things about Ruby, saying that she's a gold digger. And James, he really doesn't want to hear these insults. And this is when Mortimer hits James. I was completely shocked. I knew the dad was mean, but this is just crazy. He strikes him so hard that James falls to the ground. And this is when Percy runs over to defend him. I think this is when we all fell in love with Percy. He's more than just their driver. He's loyal, and we can tell that he truly cares for James and Lydia. Percy is played by German actor Hyang Wanner. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Apologies if I did not. Percy and Mortimer, they're just staring at each other. And then the dad says, "Do you mind if I speak to my son?" He then tells James that he's been researching Ruby's family and he plans to destroy her. He tells James that he will never speak to Ruby again and that he can take away her scholarship and see to it that she doesn't get into Oxford. I kept thinking, okay, this is crazy. The following day, we see Ruby and she's checking her phone and she notices that James, he still hasn't responded to her texts. We then see James arriving at school with his sister and he's got a busted lip, but he lies and tells his classmates that he walked into a door. There's also a scene here between Alistair and Kesh where Kesh wants to talk to Alistair, but Alistair isn't interested in talking to him. Alistair and Kesh, they're actually another storyline in Maxton Hall. Kesh isn't ready to make their relationship public, and I haven't talked too much about Alistair, but what we need to know is that he's a really good friend to James, and he likes Ruby. So we then shift over to a scene with Sutton and Lydia. He tells her that he loves her and that he wants to run off with her, and she says okay, and they plan to meet at the cafe later that week. So the next scene coming up is quite painful. Ruby is walking down the hall and she sees James coming towards her. Now remember, they have not seen each other since Mortimer caught them, and James, he hasn't been replying to her texts. So in slow motion, we see James and Alistair. They're approaching. Alistair has a big smile as he sees Ruby and Lynn, but James walks right past Ruby, ignoring her. We see the students laughing and we feel so bad for Ruby. So Ruby decides to confront James on the lacrosse field. We see her hand clutch in her bag as she heads to the field and she looks like she's on a mission. James looks surprised to see her, that she showed up, and we can tell that Ruby's quite nervous. She's upset. She wants to know why he's ignoring her. She asks him if that was the plan, to make some moves on her so that she puts in a good word with the headmaster so that he's back on the team. And James looks at her and he seems a bit surprised that she would even think that by the small huff that he makes. Ruby wants to know what happened that night and if his dad is the cause for the busted lip, but James doesn't say anything. She actually tries to put her hand on his face, but he turns his face away. James tells Ruby that she doesn't know about his family situation, and they just stare at each other. They both have glassy eyes, and she looks a bit surprised, so he says to her, "What, did you think we'd walk hand in hand in the meadows?" James tells Ruby that it was just a kiss, and she says, "It was more than a kiss." James looks at Ruby with his lip quivering, his eyes all watery. He's fighting back his tears, and then he says to her, "Did you actually start to believe that someone like me would be interested in a girl like you?" His words mean one thing, but his eyes are saying something else. We can see that it's painful for James to say this, and Ruby wants to know why he's being so cruel, and he says with a stern look, "I'm sorry if you didn't understand what this was, but it's time to go back to how things were, Robin." And he walks away, fighting back his tears. He puts on his helmet, and we can see that he's in pain. Ruby is in shock, as are we, and the look on her face is heartbreaking, and she walks away. We all know that James cares deeply for Ruby, but he wants to protect her from his dad. Ruby heads home, and her parents confront her because they found the box where she's been putting the money that she's been saving from her job. She's been saving this money to buy the stairlift for the dad. They get into an argument, and she runs off to her room crying, but her sister is there to comfort her. And from there, we see that James, he's back to his partying ways. He comes home completely drunk. He actually stumbles to the ground, and his mom finds him. I was wondering, did Percy actually let him go in the house like that? But anyway, so the mom finds him, and she notices the busted lip, and she wants to know what happened. James lies to her. He doesn't tell her that the dad hit him. Instead, he says that his teammate Ren, that he hit him with the lacrosse stick. I just don't understand why he won't tell the mom the truth. So from there, the mom, she helps him to bed, and they have a conversation where we learn a little bit more about Cordelia. James wants to know if she's ever wanted to be someone else, and she says, yes. She talks about being unhappily in love, and she's not talking about Mortimer. I think she's talking about Percy. She said that they had gone in different directions. She focused on her job and being a mom, and that sometimes it's better to let go. And it's around this time where we see a single tear coming down James's face, and we know what he's thinking. He's thinking about Ruby, and he says to his mom, "What if letting go is too hard?" Poor James. So the next day, we get a scene where Elaine and her friends, they approach Ruby, and Elaine is basically teasing her about getting dumped. And Ruby says to her, "Whatever, Elaine, you can have him. He's all yours." But as she walks away, we can see the pain in Ruby's face. And it's really sad here because both Ruby and James, they're so unhappy being apart. From there, the scene, it shifts to Ruby in her bedroom, and she's taking down the drawing that James had given her on her birthday. And she's also writing a nasty note to him. And from here, we move over to Lydia and James. They're studying in the bedroom, and that's when we see the bag that Ruby had received for her birthday. She had sent it back to James. And this is really a great scene because we learn a little bit more about the relationship that Lydia has with Graham. She talks about how they met. They met way before Maxton Hall, and they had decided to break it off once he got the position there. And the siblings, they have a really tender embrace, but we see the pain in James's face as he's missing Ruby. So from here, we see a slow motion, and we have a song in the background, which is called Go Solo. I hadn't heard it before, and it's actually a really nice song. And we see James and Lydia, they're walking into the school building, and there's this scene where Ruby's walking down the hall. She's smiling, but as she catches a glimpse of James, her smile fades. And from there, there's a montage of scenes where they're both thinking of each other, and we can see the hurt in their eyes. As I said, this episode, it's so sad. I know I keep saying this, but I just feel like it's sad scene after sad scene after sad scene. So from here, we see Graham. He's waiting for Lydia. Remember that they had decided that they were going to run off together? Well, Lydia, she doesn't show up. So we get a really nice scene with Ruby and her dad, and they talk about the accident. The dad doesn't want her feeling guilty, and he says to her that his life is actually fulfilled. They walk into the house, and Ruby receives an invitation to interview at Oxford. So the entire family is jumping up and down in joy. So we keep going from happy moments at the Bell House to sad moments at the Beaufort house. And that's what we see next. James is packing. His mom comes into his room, and she hands him his grandfather's watch. But he actually just tosses it on the bed like he doesn't care. And the mom isn't happy. And James tells her that he doesn't want to run the family business. He doesn't want to go to Oxford. What he wants is an opportunity to find out what he really wants. The mom isn't happy about this. And the conversation, it just doesn't end well. And James tells her that she can leave the room. So she does. And from here, it just gets even worse. The mom runs into Lydia. Lydia's upset and they embrace. And oh, I didn't tell you, the reason why Lydia's upset is because she just found out that she's expecting. And also, I forgot to tell you that during this scene, we hear this song by Ellie Riccardi. It's a cover of The Sea of Love. I initially didn't know that it was her singing it. It's actually really pretty. And she has a new song out called Fever, which is really catchy and really good. So now we see the mom. She's saying goodbye to Lydia as Lydia gets into the car. She's going to be heading over to Oxford for the interview. And then we see James. He walks out of the house, but he doesn't even acknowledge the mom. It's pretty sad. And the mom, you can tell that she's hurt that he ignores her. And we also notice that the mom looks over at Percy. And I thought, okay, is that the guy that she was talking about when she said she was unhappily in love, which I do think that's who she was talking about. And then she also glances over at Mortimer, who's on a call. He's not even saying goodbye to the kids. He's on a business call. That is more important to him than saying goodbye to his kids. And then the scene shifts over to Ruby. She's on the bus. She's happy. She's heading to Oxford. And as she gets off the bus, she's getting her bags. And we notice a student come over and help her with her bag. As Ruby walks into her dorm, we hear someone else walking up the stairs. She turns, and guess who it is? It's James. Both of them are just staring at each other, I think in shock. And Ruby quickly rushes into her room, and she leaves him standing there in the hallway. And that is how episode 5 ends. Another cliffhanger. So do you think that James did the right thing by breaking it off with Ruby? Do you think he should have stood up to his dad? So feel free to write in and tell me your thoughts. And thanks again for listening. And I'll be back next week. Let's see what happens at the dorm and have a good rest of the week.